Hello and welcome to Studhawk Videos. This is our how to tile a bathroom video in conjunction with our how to build a stud partition wall, how to decorate using oil-based paints. And I'm the designer of this saw guide for those of you that couldn't cut straight. So in our how to build a stud partition wall, you've obviously made your ensuite bathroom with the aid of your Studhawk saw guides, and now we're going to teach you how to tile it. And here's some of the tools that you'll need. Here's a tile cutter. This particular makes ruby. It doesn't have to be ruby, but in this case it is. Most tilers have sworn by them for decades. We'll get to that in a minute. You'll need a tiling trowel, 8mm notch trowel. You'll need a 3mm notch trowel for putting the adhesive of the Ditra anti-movement matting for the floor. You'll need a grout float. You'll need spacers and wedges. These red wedges, when you can't get a spacer exactly in, and because of the sizing of tiles, red wedges are really useful. Tiles are never exactly to the 1/10 of a millimetre, perfectly square and perfectly regular. So they're supposed to be, we know that, but they aren't. So you often have to compensate, and these little red wedges are so useful. Get them in conjunction with your 2mm white spacers, little crossers that go in the tiles, and that's that side of things. So spirit level. Let's look at that. I want to tell you about spirit level. Your bubble needs to be exactly in the middle, with an even space from one side of the bubble to the line and an even space from the other side of the bubble to the line. If you just keep that camera on that bubble, I'll show you. I've got a little wedge on this bench. Hold that camera still. No, here on the bubble. Hold that camera there on the bubble, and I'll take this wedge out and I'll start to move it up and down, and you'll see under the length of that level, that's about 3-4 millimeters between the middle perfect level on the bubble and touching the line. So that's the importance of using your level correctly. Now, other things you'll need your tile snips and your parrot nibblers. These parrot nibblers are for nibbling out holes. Straight snips, keep them with an elastic band, stops the spring popping out and getting lost. So that's for straight snipping. We'll teach you about that shortly. Here, see, it's just happened. That's what happens in your bag. So here are hole cutters. They're very expensive. Each one of these is 30 odd pounds. It has to go in an arbor. The drill bits wear out, which is why I have spares, and it's all quite expensive. So the way that tilers cut holes is with angle grinders, and you get two types of blade. You get the segmented blade and you get the continuous blade. For porcelain, which is what we're going to be tiling with, you're going to need a segmented blade to take the heat out of the blade. These continuous blades, if you try to use them, will overheat and burn out. So therefore, softer stones, marble, etc. You need a mixing paddle. You get plastering mixing paddles and you get adhesive mixing paddles. These go in a drill and you whisk up your adhesive. It ensures you don't get any lumps. You need your hacksaw for cutting your metal edges or plastic, but we never recommend using plastic edges. So I'll put a few of these to one side. You'll need an SDS drill. Why it's called an SDS, nobody seems to know, but it refers to this type of drill bit, percussion bit, and these don't spin around in your 3-jaw chucks. They have locators to stop that, so these drill through holes much better. Only an 80 quid drill, so buy one of those, keep it for life. Angle grinder, that's 110 volt for use on professional sites, but you can get 240s, probably about 20 quid each. You need your silicone gun. How does that work? Well, it's got a plunger and a trigger. It's got this, the tensions, and it's got a release trigger here, and you pull back. When you start squeezing, your plunger goes down your tube, squeezing the silicone out of your nozzle, and as soon as you take your silicone gun away from applicating, always click the trigger. It releases the pressure in the tube. You'll need a square, you need a paintbrush, and you'll need a Stanley knife. You need a proper tiling sponge, not a household sponge. And don't wring these out like this, you'll tear them. squeeze them out like this. And why am I talking about this sponge? Well, because we don't want the grout to be taken out of the joint by a soft sponge, which is why these proper professional tiling sponges are quite stiff and robust, and you can skim over the joints nicely. So that's the importance of the proper tiler sponge. Now, hole cutters aside, blades aside, let's look at these tile cutters, and let's look at cutting tiles. Well, it lives in a box, it's got a handle. Let's take it out. It's got a width guide. It's got different size wheels, and for porcelain we're going to use a nice fine wheel. Let's close the lid. Let's look at that box. Well, some people put it aside, but what they don't know is that this is made to go and fit in these ridges by the manufacturer, so that it's raised slightly off the floor so you don't have to bend your back so much. So this is a width guide, would go in here, undo your screws, just push it through and set it for width if you're going to cut a lot of regular cuts. So here's that blade. These are about 8 or 9 quid each, last time I bought one. And they go in there, and there's a little groove that locator fits in, and then you turn the handle, twist the handle like that to lock it down to the level of your tile and across its surface. If these get a bit stiff, quick spray of WD-40 on here, make it run really smooth. So let's put a tile in there, and let's think about cutting tiles. So in our tile cutter, not here, it's got a ridge here to push your tile against. In she goes. That way we know that this carriage is running perpendicular and square to it. Now, downward pressure. Watch my hand. Feel my hand. Listen. The sound's very important. And the pressure, I'm showing you how much. I'm not really pushing down. That is all it needs. Do not go twice. Oh, we didn't even put the cutting bar in, but we will. So there's a little hole here, locates for the breaker bar, and a quick snap. That's cutting tiles. Now, one little tip. You want to cut small strips. What can happen is try to cut a small strip off of a tile, and it might do it in this situation, because this isn't a very brittle porcelain or dense porcelain. So, well, they tend to shear out the cuts. And a tip for overcoming that is, if you want to cut this size, take a piece of tile from this size. What I'm going to do is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to make 4 times its thickness, about here. Now I'm going to cut the strip in half, and what's going to happen, and you've got measurements here, right. It's about half anyway. Just for example, 1 score, break, and then I cut my strips out. This could be decorative board, pieces. Maybe now we'll be at the limit of the sort of cut we could do. But I'm going to show you another little trick, little tip, and it's this. Don't do the big break, just try and ease open the cut. Turn it round. That started the break, shearing along the inside structure of the tile. And then line that twice. Well, there's a limit to what you can do, but you get the idea, and this is what happens. So I'm glad that's happened. So somehow the pressure of that cut's burst out of it, because we hadn't cracked it open at this end. But if we kept turning it, giving it a bit of pressure, turn it, give it a bit of pressure, it opens your cut. So you can actually cut thin slivers, but we never want thin slivers on tiling, and there's a reason. If tiling's set out right, it will always, every cut in the corner will be bigger than a half. And it's because of this principle. I'm coming to this end of the bench, so we keep it under there. Put that stuff aside. Tiles. Here is my example wall. Well, let's have a look. It could be 10 feet, but in this case it's just under a metre. So, let's put a centre line in our wall. 500. That, in our wall or our floor, would be our centre line or vertical line up the wall. So, take a tile, put it on the centre line. Take the next tile, put it on the centre line. And then, look at the height. Is it bigger than a half? And in this situation, it is bigger than a half. However, come back to the centre line. There's two ways of setting out. It's like this, a tile either side of the centre line or one tile halfway on the centre line. Like that. So that your cut is always bigger than a half. And if the wall was over here, you'll see that setting out before you start your tiling that this is the correct rule to use. Either a tile either side of the centre line or a tile halfway on the centre line, with the centre line running through the centre of it. So that at the end of the wall, it's always bigger than a half. And I think that's about it. So what we have to do now is a classroom session and take you through what we're going to do on site. And these are the tools that did this room. So we'll see you in the classroom. So, a little word about using snips, tile snips. People think they're scissors and they cut through. It's not really that sort of action that you need. Grip the tile and shear it down. You're breaking a line off. Obviously we always put a score line with our tile, but supposing we had to snip a thin strip, we'll never break that with the tile cutter because of the breakers not reaching it due to the distance that all of these makes of tile cutters, no matter which one you have in common, and that's they can't do fine cuts like this. So there's a technique that's levering off. That's the noise you want to hear. See what happens if I go 2. Feel the jaw. Sometimes it's good to run your thumb along here like this. So this is how I'm levering like that with that hand and levering downwards with it. So that's why the tile springs out like that. So that's your tile snipping technique. Otherwise, not many of you will get it. And you want a slight undercut so that we don't get any bulges that stop the cut from fitting perfectly and closing up a grout joint. We can snip those other bits off. See? So when you start to get the feel of your snips, you start to get a really straight line. Sometimes you might need to get down on your thigh, like so, but these are techniques you'll use to do it. And that's tile snipping. Parrot nibbler's the same, but they come through the hole, and we'll show you that in the video.
The amazing new Studhawk Saw Guide set. There are 2 Studhawks in the pack. The Studhawk 90 makes cutting square simple, and those difficult miters, the Studhawk 45 makes them a piece of cake. The Studhawk helps keep your fingers safe and save time squaring a line. Get your Studhawk Saw Guide set today.